Hello, everyone. This is Sergio with ACS Cloud Partners. We are back here again another month to explore our partner portal, our fiber lookup, pricing pro, really the tools and resources that our partners are using today to get the most value and the most support. We have some amazing tools and features that, we're very passionate about. We invest a lot of resources in, and we have full-time staff that builds and develops these tools. So I want to show you guys how to get the most value out of them. With that being said, as this call kind of runs through, feel free to drop any of your questions into the chat, and I'll be sure to address them at the end of the call. This call is being recorded, so we'll be sure to give everybody a copy of that recording either later today or tomorrow. So with that being said, we're going to start off here with the ACS Partner Portal. The ACS Partner Portal is the best resource for general information about providers, to access information like commission rates, to look up different products and solutions, and to be able to filter and navigate those solutions by provider or specialty, and just general marketing information that you'd be looking for, right? White sheets, battle cards, provider information, right? The information you'll actually need to know more about these providers to ultimately help you improve. One of the first things you'll see on this partner portal today is we have these huge, amazing looking banners, right? Partner event. What's going on over here? ACS hosts nationwide events all throughout the year, right? If you haven't been paying attention, ACS is constantly hosting these events. For the next, this is only over the November, that's only over an 8 week span. We have 6 events in the next 8 weeks, right? All across the country. El Segundo, California, Arlington, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina, Orange, California, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Charlotte, North Carolina. These are all unique events that we're hosting right in your backyard, right? And what's very cool about all of these events, there's unique suppliers that are going to be there. For instance, right, in El Segundo, the next one that's coming up, that's this Thursday, GoTo and GeoLinks will be there as sponsors. So not only are you meeting the ACS team, you're going to get a chance to interact with these providers. And these providers are all curated and selected specifically for that region, right? Because they're in that region. So GeoLinks, this is GeoLinks territory, right? Serving Southern California and other parts of California. GoTo nationwide UCAS provider, they're going to be an excellent resource, an excellent group of people to talk to, learn more about their solution, why use GoTo as far as their further UCAS solution. So, if you don't have access to this portal, we'll be sure to give everyone a login, all our partners, just to get an idea of, just because you should have access to this stuff, right? It's going to be really helpful along the way. So yeah, these are the upcoming events at a glance. But just one point I wanted to make about the partner portal, right? Before we dive into some of the other pages. My ACS team. For every partner, your ACS team's going to look slightly different, right? Because what we've done is, depending on where you're based out of, right? If you're on the West Coast, Central, Northeast, Southeast, even by specialty, right? Real estate, healthcare, automotive, we've paired you up with a channel manager that's suited to your needs. So when you log into your ACS team, your partner portal, your ACS team's going to look slightly different. But with that being said, there are some similarities. And something that really separates ACS from other TSDs is that every ACS channel manager has, on average, 13 plus years of channel experience. Every ACS channel manager has this. So when you're being paired up with someone, you know you're going to be in good hands. You know you're working with somebody that's seen everything from the small mom and pop deals to the large multi-location complex add-ons, so you're going to be in good hands. Your in general, your ACS channel manager is going to be your best resources for all things sales strategy, um, for quoting support as well, right? When you have those opportunities, you're welcome to You can lead by sending them to your support manager, but you can also copy your channel manager there too, right? That's what they're there for, right? To help you quote, to help you get pricing. Once we look at the fiber lookup, we'll see how this tool how it actually empowers partners to be self-sufficient, but you can still lean on us, right? We'll never, shove you away. We're here to support you. And in fact, you see here you have all our emails, all our phone numbers that can be called or text. And something that, really separates us as a TSD as well is there's always a real person to reach out to, right? If you need something, whether, quoting support, you have two different contacts here, right? If you need marketing support, you have a dedicated marketing manager, right? So whether you need white sheets, one sheets, landing pages, we've supported partners in doing email blast designs. So whatever that need may be in the marketing realm, you have a dedicated contact. And then lastly, I'm your partner success manager. I do all things partner portal, all things fiber lookup, and I also work very, very closely with commissions. So I can answer your questions like how much you get paid, when you get paid, spiffs, compensation, all that fun stuff. So that's your ACS team at a glance, right? Once we start looking at some of these pages, I'm going to pull up products. So products here is just a very easily filterable table where you can search by a product and see what supplier offers that product, right? Maybe your customer is asking about SD-WAN. You can pull up SD-WAN here and it'll actually populate all the different suppliers that offer that SD-WAN service. Not only that, it'll show you just, hey, what is SD-WAN, right? SD-WAN for dummies. We've really curated this material to be very digestible and easy to understand. Benefits. What are the benefits of SD-WAN? Comparisons, right? What does SD-WAN compare to? The different providers that can offer that solution. And here's where this tab alone is going to be worth its weight in gold because it's going to make looking up, these providers very, very easy, right? How many times do we come across a customer that says, "Hey, do you guys do security cameras? Do you guys do sensors?" Now you can look up those different products, find exactly those providers, and then know who to engage. But let's say you're looking at this and you're like, okay, I see 20 different suppliers here. Who do I go to for SD-WAN? Those are the types of questions where you can lean on your ACS channel manager, right? These guys have been in the industry, 15 to 20 plus years. So you can come to them to these questions, say, out of all these suppliers, from your experience, right, who are some of the leading SD-WAN suppliers, right? Because some of these suppliers have SD-WAN as an add-on. Some of these suppliers, SD-WAN is their specialty, right? So that's the kind of information that you're going to want to get so that you can ultimately better advise your customers. If there's any spiffs for SD-WAN, you can populate them throughout different suppliers here. And then, of course, videos, right? So we make this very, very easy to navigate to. And it's just a great resource for being able to look up different suppliers, that key information for the products that you're looking for. Something very unique about this portal, we have an ACS automotive page. So some of you may have not known this, but ACS has a dedicated automotive division. What that means is that we have unique solutions and solutions providers that specifically offer products and services for the automotive industry, right? This includes dealerships of all sizes. And let me just show you what that looks like to give you a better idea, right? So here's some of these providers at a glance. And these providers, right? Auto Trainer, Better Vantage Point, and just kind of going rapid fire, right? Better Vantage Point is compliance and risk mitigation for auto dealerships. CyberFox, security specifically for auto dealers. Dealer paid, payment processing specifically for auto dealers. Reunion marketing, again, SEO, digital marketing for dealerships. The reason that this is important is because these providers all have that industry experience. They can talk the same language from these different auto groups. They know about their different CRM integrations. They know about their dealer management systems. They're able to speak that same language. So all their products are curated just for their industry. So that's what makes this division of ACS very unique. All that to say is if you have automotive customers, any customers of yours, regardless of its size, you have to be working with ACS Automotive, right? We're the only TSD that has this unique division, and we're constantly getting an influx of partners and even other, competitors wanting to work with us because of our agreements. And I'll say off the bat, some of these agreements are exclusive to ACS. You're not going to find them with another TSD. We've pitched these providers, we've won them over with our unique value proposition and really demonstrated to them that, hey, working with ACS, we're going to be able to, generate more revenue for you. And, it's a win-win because now we have a team of in-house experts that knows automotive, that is working with automotive customers, and we're providing this value to our partners, right? So if this is something of interest, you can write that in the chat. Once we send that email blast, just let us know, right? Because we want to connect your customers with the best solutions. And we've seen a lot of success with some of these really unique and really cool solutions. Me as an AI voice agent, right? You call the service line to do an oil change, and you have somebody on the phone that sounds like a human, that understands all the human gestures, like can I get an oil change for? It picks up all those nuances, punches it back into the CRM, and ultimately creates that appointment for you seamlessly. So it's a huge cost saver for dealerships. That's just one example, but there's a lot of cool things that are going on out there. Just kind of looking through some of these tabs, all the different products in this industry, the docs, solutions that are available. But again, the main takeaway is ACS has a unique division, ACS Automotive. If you have automotive customers, you need to be working with us. All right, this will be the last page we'll explore here on the ACS Partner Portal. We have the provider portfolio. What we've done here is, this is a core portfolio on our partner portal, right? If you look here, there's about 200, 250 different uh, provider pages. Our extensive portfolio spans, 500 to 600 plus providers. 9 times out of 10, if you come across a provider that you don't see on our portal, we have access to them. We have an agreement with them where we can get paid and compensated. With that being said, you can look up any provider here, say AT&T for an example, and you can toggle these different tabs that really has all the information you'll ever want and need from these different provider pages. Information page, contacts page. When you're working with your ACS team, it's not typical that you'll utilize these contacts pages, but just to show you the depth and information that we have for these for all these provider pages, right? Sales contact, channel managers, operation contacts, escalation contacts, right? All that to say is that, when you work with ACS, not only do you get access to our providers, you also get access to the long-standing relationships that we have. So for any one of these providers, we have escalation contacts. If there's ever a serious issue with your customer, either pre or post install, we're going to be able to step in and really help resolve that. There's pricing information as well. However, as we look at the FiberLookup and PricingPro, we'll see that all these rate cards and pricing sheets are obsolete because PricingPro is going to be the best resource to generate real-time pricing for the vast majority of these providers. There's also commission information, right? We're very transparent about what commissions looks like. These provider percentages are going to vary depending on your ACS agreement, and that's in my backyard, right? If partners want to talk about commissions, spiffs, incentives, I'd be happy to set that up with them separately. But there's our commission mailbox you guys can reach out to. So that's the partner portal at a glance. There's a bunch of other cool stuff. We have commission rate sheets, right? A through Z, all the different providers, what their commission rates is. We have an orders tab, right? Where as you're placing these orders, you're going to see them reflect on this orders tab. It's going to look like a table here. I don't have any orders set up on this account, but you're going to be able to filter by what's installed, what's canceled, all the, that way there's full transparency and congruence about the orders that you're submitting and what you're seeing recorded on the ACS side. And we're constantly proactively tracking this stuff for our partners. Cool. So now I'm going to jump into the fiber lookup. I'm going to do a new lookup. This is the address I want here. So this is the fiber lookup, right? Before we get started, the fiber lookup is a proprietary tool built and developed by ACS for our partners. So this is developed in-house specifically for ACS partners. No other TSD has access to this tool. It's only for ACS partners. The way to utilize it's really easy. All you need is an address. You punch in your address here. You'll see different addresses that populate from the one you've entered. Select the one that's most relevant and hit lookup. We'll give this a second. Let me close some of these tabs. I'm recording. Alrighty. So you're going to notice two things simultaneously, right? You're going to have this satellite map, and you also see the house, right? The house indicates the address you've entered. And then on the left-hand side, I want you guys to pay really close attention to this location results. This is going to be the best way to interpret the results from your address. You're going to notice these clusters, right? These clusters are information clusters that are telling you, hey, there's 19 different providers in this building. And sometimes it could be the same provider just on multiple levels if it's a high-rise unit. What you can do is hit uncluster and it's going to expand that selection. And now we can see all these different providers expanded. When you still see these spinning wheels, that means the system and what's happening, just a little background, what's happening when you look up this address, FiberLookup is making a real-time API request, right? These are direct connections into these different provider systems to generate the real-time availability. FiberLookup is the qualifying and serviceability tool, and then PricingPro, which we'll look at in just a second. Here's the big blue button. That is the real-time pricing tool. So right now we're going to qualify, look at the different availability, and then once we're satisfied with what we're looking at, we're going to jump into PricingPro and get real-time pricing. Some cool little features that you'll see here. You can toggle on labels. This is going to give you an overlay of, just the different surrounding streets, the business that you might be on. This is Dallas Marriott downtown. In addition to that, you can toggle on or off fiber providers. If you only want to look at the shared providers, you can toggle that on. If you want to see if there's any data centers nearby, you can toggle that on. You can see there's a data center right here, Digital Realty and Equinix. You can zoom out, right? When you have that data center toggle on, you can zoom out. Let me turn off my labels. And you can see where they are in this city and where they span across the states. So that's just a really cool feature. You can look at data centers. You can look at fiber, shared fiber options. Zoom in here, right? But if you were just to punch in the address, this is what you look at your screen, right? You'd see all the different providers here. Your first thought is, what do I do from here, right? Well, let's imagine this. You have a customer, right? Maybe they're in this, multi-tenant, multi-suite building. They want to know, uh, they want to know their internet options, right? Maybe they have an office and, a couple suites in the back office dedicated for them. They're moving in, they're brand new to the building. They want to know what's available. If we look over here at location results, this is the best way to get them to serve the availability. Shared internet providers, we have consolidated communications. And here's the status on net up to 1 gig. Spectrum coax, green. If you want to be reminded about any one of these statuses, hit the little information icon. Green indicates the address is serviceable. Proceed with installation truck roll. That's the best serviceability we can get. AT&T AIA is available, right? AT&T is available in the building. Please keep in mind there could be a build out required where depending on where their equipment is located. So all these different information icons, and I will say off the bat, sometimes, we're familiar with a status, right? Oh, I know what it means if a provider says they're on net or if they're lit or if they're, available. I will say different providers have different definitions, different criteria, different classifications for what these statuses mean, right? So we could be looking at FiberLight's on-net status and Verizon's on-net status, and they'll have a different interpretation of what that means, right? For one provider, that can mean, hey, install in 2 weeks or less, whereas the other provider can say on net, but still requires desktop survey and, there could be some nuances there. So I just want to caution partners. Different providers have different thresholds for what these statuses mean. In general, it's a great idea, a great way to get the general idea of the availability. But just look at those statuses. That's all I'm asking, so you can better convey that to your customer and set the right expectation. But once we look here at the dedicated fiber providers, this is a very rich building in terms of availability. Crown Castle, Consolidated, FiberLight, Cogent, Logitech's, the list goes on. Windstream, Verizon, AT&T Fiber, all of these providers are on net in this building, right? So when you have these many provider options, naturally, the customer is just going to say, that's great. We have all this connectivity options. Let's just go with the best pricing. And that's when we can utilize Pricing Pro to generate that real-time pricing. Before we jump there, really quickly at the very bottom, dedicated internet resellers, AirSpring, Fusion, and Nitel. You'll see these on all the addresses that you look up. They're wholesalers. They're gonna sell that. They're last mile providers. Sometimes they can be very competitive as far as pricing, and they're going to be really great for that multi-location opportunity where customer may have one location in Verizon territory, another location AT&T territory, and they want a unified bill depending on, regardless of, where these different providers are. Fixed wireless providers, Beyond Reach, Earthlink, TowerStream. These are providers that typically, you put a microwave dish on the rooftop. There's no uh, if there's no obstructions, right, from that line of sight, that they're going to thrive in those opportunities, right? It gets a little tricky for some of these high rises, but think about your mom and pop opportunities or even smaller buildings where there isn't going to be a lot of obstruction as far as trees, other sky rises that are going to kind of interrupt that signal. Satellite internet, Hughes, right? Hughes is always going to be on all these availability searches. They are nationwide. And then lastly, at the very bottom, there is some more technical information, right? I know we have a lot of technical partners. So there's information like telco name, right? Who's the local exchange carrier, AT&T, cable provider, right? Based on zip code, who's in general the local cable provider, things like NPA, NXX, central office location, exchange, and just some other, here it is, central office address, right? And then the distance to the central office. So for some of the partners, especially depending on the opportunity, that information is going to be very, very helpful. Then the last thing I just want to demonstrate here before moving on is the fiber network overlays. If you look here where it says fiber network, you can see all these different providers that you can toggle on. Let's see what happens when I press one of these. Let's see if I go with consolidated. And we'll just give this about 2 seconds to load up. There it is. So this is consolidated communications network overlay. I'm gonna toggle off these providers, toggle on consolidated. As you can see here, it's a very great visual representation of where their fiber is running. And you can see how amazing that is, how it runs underneath this highway. One word of advice, a lot of times, mistakenly, someone will look at this and say, oh, I see the fiber path on the tool. It's right in front of the building. That means, that whole building is serviceable. Although the fiber paths may be running adjacent or parallel to that street, there are different access points within the fiber path, right? So depending on the access point, and that's not visually, we don't see those access points, but let this serve as a reference for those opportunities where, let's say there wasn't 15 other providers here and Consolidated was the only provider. Had you not known that the fiber paths were running, in front of that building that you were quoting, you would have never known to think of them as a provider that could be serviceable, it could supply services to that customer. So just be mindful of that. Fiber paths doesn't necessarily mean that they're right there in that building. It just indicates that, hey, they have fiber running. Depending on the access points on where that fiber is running, that's ultimately going to determine serviceability. And that's the kind of stuff where you can work with your ACS team. We're going to be able to, remind you of that process and ultimately just find the best solution for your customer. Cool. So now that I've looked at the availability, and I know I'm taking my sweet time, right? I'm taking my sweet time looking at all the results. I turn on all the features. When you're in this tool, right? You're punching an address, you're looking it up. You're gonna do this 10 times faster than I am, right? You're gonna be able to look up an address, let all the spinning wheels load, and immediately you're gonna know how to talk to. You can pull up the phone and talk to that customer and say, "Hey, there's multiple providers in your building, in the surrounding areas, that can bring services to your location," right? So, while you're still talking to that customer, you can utilize Pricing Pro here. And just for clarification, Fiber Lookup is the real-time availability tool, and Pricing Pro is the real-time pricing tool. So what we'll do next is we'll generate an RFQ name. We'll call this Tech LLC. Call it Tech Bros LLC. Depending on the customer's budget or their need, you can select the different product categories here. One thing you'll notice is there's more product pricing options other than internet, right? You have dedicated and shared, but you also have SIP trunks, security packages, pots and pots replacement. And in the near future, you'll have, UCaaS options like hosted VoIP, right? So Pricing Pro is the real-time pricing tool for internet, UCaaS, security, pots. So think of Pricing Pro as you come across these solutions and you'll be able to generate real-time pricing. For this example, we'll just look at dedicated internet. You can select the providers that you want to quote out here very simply. AT&T, Spectrum Fiber, Consolidated. Maybe we'll add one of those fixed wireless providers like Earthlink. Now that you have this populated, you can select the different terms, router options, static IP addresses if you have that information in mind, right? And then you can select the different speeds. You can select multiple speeds here. That's what makes this really, really efficient. And just a quick fact for AT&T and ACC Business, you can now quote 5-year terms. It's going to be extremely competitive pricing. Of course, that's not for every customer, but for a customer that has a 5-10 year lease, they're going to want that long-term commitment for that dedicated internet access. Get them the 5-year term. It's going to be extremely competitive, more price aggressive. So that option is available. That's a very new update. So you'll see that today. I'm gonna do 3-year term just to keep this consistent. Let's do 100 meg across the board, zero static IPs. I'm gonna keep this apples to apples, right? No, let's do with router for all of these providers, 100 meg, 3-year term. And then I'm gonna turn on the shared internet, right? Now that I've toggled that on, I see the different shared internet providers. I'm gonna quote Spectrum, right? Maybe this company's gonna want a failover circuit. Their main circuit goes out. They're gonna want something as a backup. Let's do the 1 gig for Spectrum coax, month to month term. Let's add that Wi-Fi router. And now I'm gonna hit run pricing. All right, so this is the RFQ dashboard. two main things I want to emphasize here. This is the opportunity name. And the reason I'm so particular about the opportunity name is because you can save these RFQs. Your searches get saved. And I will emphasize, right? We've been in business 23 years. We are not in the business to take your customers. Partners have asked, hey, as I'm entering these searches, where are they going? Are you guys utilizing them? We're not touching your searches. We're not referencing them. We don't have access to them. Your searches live in your search history for your use only, right? So that you can reference them. I just want to give you that point of confidence. We've been in business 23 plus years. We wouldn't be in business if we were poaching or going around our agents to talk to their customers. This tool is designed and developed for you so that you can get the most value out of it, right? So the idea is that you can create these different opportunities, create these different searches, name them something that you can reference, because there's some really powerful tools within this system that can help you better filter, organize, and coordinate. And we'll look at those very shortly, right? There's some really cool mini CRM options that we can see. What I'll do right now is I'll finish out this information card here. This is crucial because the presented to what Pricing Pro dashboard does here is it gives you the option to actually email the customer. You can email the customer this dashboard or email them a pricing text. So as you're emailing the actual customer, you want to really make sure that you're getting this information right. Let's just say this is Gio Ledford. He's the IT manager. Right. And I don't want to put, placeholder information or dummy information there because um, this is actually going to be sent to them. The email that you enter here, that's the customer email that's going to get this quote. So once this is all populated, you can see here we have all the pricing generated. You're going to want to look here where it says total cost. This is the total cost that includes the router. You can see there's an additional install cost. The install cost is in addition, right? That doesn't include the actual the actual monthly recurring charge. And the reason why that's not included is sometimes this stuff can get waived, right? Depending on the opportunity, depending on, if it's on net or near net, the you know the provider keeps that information in mind, and sometimes we can help negotiate and get that install waived. But just looking at this here, for just looking at the total cost, we can see how competitive Consolidated Communications came in here at 370, Earthlink 475. You can see the different pricing here. Let's say you're familiar with your customer, they don't like to be overwhelmed by too many options. Make it simple for them, right? If you don't want to include one of these providers, you can simply hit delete and you can remove them from that RFQ. Same thing here, right? Three options still seems like too much and you just want to really make this simple for that provider. You can delete that other option. And now you have, hey, now you're presenting the customer with the two best options, right? You're gonna frame this in a way that, hey, these are the best suppliers, based off my experience. You're gonna package this up for them. You're gonna keep the shared internet option as a backup. It's only $125 a month. It's gonna give them a ton of peace of mind. And from here, you can send them again a pricing text, which is just a generic email. It's going to have a table and it's going to have your information. Or, which is much, much better, is save and email the customer, right? It's going to generate an email and it's going to generate this text. You can review the RFQ from this link. It's already going to say the introductions like hello, John, or hello, Gio. So all you need to do is say, please see below. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to hit send. In just a second, I'm going to show you exactly what the customer is seeing from their perspective as you're sending them this RFQ dashboard. And I just want to make a point, right? I know I'm taking my time looking at all these different features. Your ACS team is extremely proficient at utilizing FiberLookup and PricingPro. So although we give partners the the ability to utilize these tools, you can still lean on your ACS team to support you with these types of requests. So I just want to make that a point, right? We're not giving you these tools and saying, good luck, you're on your own. Let us know when you need something or when the order's closed. No, we want to be there along every step of the way, right? As you get these opportunities, work with your ACS team, your channel manager, your support manager, qualify the address. We can also qualify the address, and then we can circle together and say, hey, this is what we found, this is what you found. That way we're constantly in communication, and it's just going to be a better experience along the way. So minus pretending these little circles aren't here, right? These little delete buttons. The only reason I can see them now is because the because I'm logged in as the admin here. However, this is exactly what the customer will see with that link that we generated, right? So what the system did is it actually generated an email that went directly to the customer. Remember that email we generated that says, please review your RFQ from this link. It gave them this link here. And so now I'm the customer. I'm seeing your information up here, which you can always update under profile section, right? The advisor, the agent information, you'll see that up here with your logo, right? Not ACS logo. You'll see your logo here. And then again, I'm looking at this saying, oh yeah, I'm Gio Ledford. Yep, Tech Bros, that's me. That's my company address. And now I'm looking at the pricing that you've presented me. Earthlink, consolidated. I can see everything very clearly. There's some view no options here. And this is information that we've already pre-populated so that customers have the right idea and the right expectation, right? This is information that we felt they need to know. So this just says pricing and availability determined by line of sight, right? Earthlink is one of those providers. They're a fixed wireless provider. Line of sight is very, very important to that service. So we just add that little caveat about, hey, there might be a desktop survey, there might be an in-person survey to verify the feasibility of getting that fixed wireless. Spectrum coax, if you look at the note here, rates will go up after the first 12 months. It's been this way forever, but we still like to remind customers that way they're not surprised on month 13 that their service has gone up a few dollars. But at a glance, the customer's looking at this. If they're satisfied with what they're looking at, they can hit request order. And then again here, maybe they're looking just at the total cost. They're going to hit request order. What's going to happen when the customer does that is you're going to get an automatic email that says, hey, your customer, Gio Ledford from Tech Bros, has just accepted the 100 meg for 370, right? And has just accepted Spectrum Coax 1 gig for 125. So now that you have, figuratively the verbal from the customer that they want these different solutions, you can work with your ACS team to help generate the contracts. We do a ton of business with the Spectrum. We do this stuff all day. We are so fast at doing Spectrum Coax deals. We have access to their buy flow system. We can schedule the install ahead of time. We do this stuff all day. This will be done, within the hour. Same thing, Consolidated, Earthlink. We do a ton of business with these companies. So we know their processes, we know their tools, we know their agreements. So we're going to be able to turn that around very efficiently for your customers. Earlier, I was talking about how PricingPro can function as a mini CRM. If you look here at this RFQ data, you can see information about when you created the opportunity, how many times the customer has opened it up. You can look at the status, right? And the reason why this is important is because when you look back at your RFQ history or your search history, you can filter by different statuses, right? Oh, I only want, you clock in the morning. I only want to see the opportunities that are still in the presentation phase. That's going to remind me to follow up, or only the opportunities that are in the decision phase because I want to check in with those customers. So you have access to these different statuses, and you have access to a search history and RFQ history. So really, this is the number one tool that our partners are utilizing to qualify services for internet, and then to get real-time pricing for internet, UCaaS, SIP trunks. security, and POTS lines, right, via PricingPro. And again, I know I took my sweet time, making every pit stop along the way, but I promise, for our partners who are already utilizing this, who are either new to this tool, have already been using it, when you're utilizing the FiberLookup and PricingPro, the moment you enter an address, you qualify it, you look at that satellite view, you jump into PricingPro, you get the real-time pricing. That whole cycle is, minutes. We're talking minutes, right? Something that used to take 3 to 4 business days to send to 6 different providers and get pricing, send it back, send them back the information. That process has been shrunk down and expedited through our PricingPro and FiberLookup tools. Again, these are strictly and exclusively for ACS partners. If you are a partner and you don't have access to these tools, please reach out to us. This is going to be a game changer. And I will just say, right, if you have sales teams in your company that you work with and you want a dedicated call like this where we can get a little bit more granular, or maybe we're looking at a specific state or a specific provider or a specific region, I'm happy to set up these calls for you and your team. So with that being said, I'll take a moment to look and see if there's any questions. See if there's any Q&A. What is the accuracy of this tool? What about multi-location, and how can you group all info for pricing? Great question. So what is the accuracy of this tool? Great question. Just to lead with that one. That is a very common question we get, right? And rightfully so, right? You're talking to the customers. You want to make sure this pricing is accurate. The way we ensure accuracy is by providing this information directly from these provider systems. This information is not coming from Excel. It's not something that we're typing in on the back end. These are real-time APIs, direct provider access into their tools, right? So sometimes you'll notice, let's say if you run into a situation where the pricing says not available, right? What that means is, hey, PricingPro is trying to connect to this system from Earthlink or Consolidated or Verizon, and hey, maybe their tool is down. So really, the benefit of having these real-time connections is that it ensures the pricing's always going to be accurate. It's always going to be the real-time pricing and the latest pricing based on the latest promo rates. So yeah, all that to say is, in short, we don't generate the pricing. The pricing comes directly from these providers and their systems. If there ever is a discrepancy, right, we can look at any one of these providers. We can go to them and say, hey, this is what your system is generating. Why is there a discrepancy here? And very rarely does that happen, but we're able to we're able to kind of work through that and really ultimately just help make sure that the customer's pricing is going to be accurate. And if there ever is any issues, bring that to our attention. We'll address it with the provider, and we'll let them know, that's it's not acceptable for these pricings to have variations, right? Any pricing that the customers are getting from either a direct team or a direct rep, right? Somebody they're competing against, there is pricing parity. So any pricing that they're getting, ACS partners and anyone in the channel should also get that competitive pricing. There was a question about bulk lookup. Unfortunately, bulk lookup is not available. I would say if you have 25 or more locations, there is a way we can do it on the back end, but the tool is not it's not in production where every partner can utilize it. So we can set it up on the back end. So I'd say if you have 25 plus more locations that you need to have a bulk lookup request done for, there is a method of doing that. Just work with your ACS channel manager. We've done this before multiple times. But anything under that, work with your ACS team. We can help you crunch out these addresses, find out who's the local exchange provider, who's a shared internet provider, and any other regional fiber providers. I know I didn't touch on that, but ACS also has the most regional fiber providers than any other TSD, right? What's a regional fiber provider? These are providers that are in specific cities, specific regions, small pockets throughout the country that offer very competitive services. They're known for being aggressive in pricing, having very personal customer service, and being very flexible to work with in all aspects, right? So, one example, if you're in Dallas, Easy Fiber in Dallas, right? They only service that little that pocket. If you're in the Bay Area in California, Sail Internet, they only service the Bay Area in California. They don't span across the whole state, but you rest assured the services that they're providing in that specific region is going to be exceptional. So there's going to be a ton of regional fiber providers that you will come across. And then there was a question about packaging different pricing. If it's multiple locations, there isn't an ability to package, different pricing for different locations. Right now we're kind of getting back to that bulk request. So the way the RFQ dashboard is set up, it's per location, right? The assumption is that, you're going to send this directly to the customer, and depending on each location is going to have different serviceability results, and to not confuse the different locations, to keep it all streamlined and easy to interpret, we keep it all in one place. Very good questions. And the last thing I'll leave off on is, just work with your ACS team, right? Going back to that partner portal, your ACS team has a ton of resources, and they're going to be extremely helpful for all the opportunities you come across, all the quoting requests. You're welcome to utilize these tools, but you're also very welcome to reach out to your ACS team to support you in quoting, to support you with those bulk lookups, and to ultimately, help make your life easier. So with that being said, we'll be sure to give everybody this recording. Want to thank everybody for their time. We'll be back here next month. We're constantly enhancing these tools. There's constantly new things on our partner portal, on our FiberLookup Pricing Pro. And then again, if you're in any one of these regions, and be on the lookout because we're still adding some more events before the end of the year. If you're in any of these regions, make sure to click on the logos. It's going to take you to a landing page where you can RSVP, meet the team, meet the sponsors, play Top Golf, AT&T Dallas Stadium. There's always a really fun activity to do while enjoying some drinks and some appetizers. It's going to be a great time. But with that being said, thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.